Good morning. Page 476. When Khrushchev, wiping the tear from his eye, gave permission for the publication of the event in Nisevich, he was quite sure that it was about Stalin's camps and that he had none of his own. Tvardovsky, too, when he was worrying the highest in the land to give their imprimatur, sincerely believed that it was all in the past, that it was over and done with. Tvardovsky can be forgiven. Around him, everybody in public, life in Moscow was sustained by this one thought. There's a thaw, they've stopped snatching people. We've had 2 cathartic congresses. People are returning from nowhere, and in large numbers. The archipelago was lost in a beautiful pink mist of rehabilitations and became altogether invisible. But even I succumbed, and I do not deserve forgiveness. I did not mean to deceive Tvardovsky. I too genuinely believed that the story I had brought him was about the past. Could my tongue have forgotten the taste of gruel? I have sworn never to forget. Had I somehow never learned the mentality of dog handlers? Could I have failed, as I schooled myself to be a chronicler of the archipelago, to understand how closely akin it is to the state, and how necessary to it? I was so sure that I at least was not in the power of the law I have mentioned. As the ponder grows, the memory goes. I did get fatter. I fell for it and believed. I let myself be persuaded by complacent mainland. Believed what my own newfound prosperity would have me believe, and the stories told by the last of my friends to come from you know where. Conditions were easier. Discipline was relaxed. They were letting people out all the time, closing whole camp areas, dismissing NKVD men. No, we are creatures of mortal clay, subject to its laws. No measure of grief, however great, can leave us forever sensitive to the general suffering. And until we transcend our clay, there will be no just social system on this earth, whether democratic or authoritarian. So that I was taken by surprise when I received yet a third stream of letters from present-day Czechs. Although this was the most natural of all, and the first thing I should have expected, on crumpled scraps of paper in a blurred pencil scrawl, in stray envelopes and often addressed and posted by free employees, in other words, on the sly. Today's archipelago sent me its criticisms and sometimes its angry protests. These letters, too, were a single many-throated cry, but a cry that said, "What about us?" In the uproar over my story, the press had nimbly avoided all that free citizens and foreigners did not need to know. And the theme of its trumpeting was, "Yes, it happened, but it will never happen again." And the Czechs set up a howl. What do you mean never happen again? We're inside now. And our conditions are just the same. Nothing has changed since Ivan Denisovich's time. The messaging was the same letters from many different places. The message was the same in letters from many different places. Any Czech who reads your book will feel bitterness and disgust because everything is just as it was. What has changed if all the laws providing for 25 years imprisonment issued under Stalin are still in force? Once more we're being put inside for nothing at all. Whose personality cult is to blame this time? A black mist has covered us, and no one can see us. Why have people like Vol.3 gone unpunished? They are still in charge of our re-education. From the chappiest warder to the head of the camp's administration, the existence of the camps is a vital concern to them all. The warders fabricate charges against us on the most trivial excuses. The security officers blacken our personnel files. Prisoners like me, with 25 years, are their favorite fare, and they gorge themselves on it. These corrupt... excuse me. These corrupt... whose mission it is to exhort us to virtue. They are just like the colonizers who used to pretend that Indians and Negroes were inferior human beings. It takes no effort at all to set public opinion against us. All you need to do is write an article called "The Man Behind Bars," and next day the people will be holding mass meetings to get us burned in ovens. True, every word of it is true. Every word of it true. You have taken up your position with the rear guard, says Vanya Alexeyev, to my dismay. After reading all these letters, I, who have been thinking myself a hero, saw that I hadn't a leg to stand on. In 10 years I had lost my vital link with the archipelago. For them, for today's sects, my book is no book. My truth is no truth, unless there is a continuation, unless I go on to speak of them too. Truth must be told, and things must change. If words are not about real things, and do not cause things to happen, what is the good of them? Are they anything more than the barking of village dogs at night? Excuse me. I should like to commend this thought to our modernists. This is how our people usually think of literature. They will not so soon lose the habit. Should they? Do you think? And so I came to my senses, and through the pink-perfumed clouds of rehabilitation, I could make out the familiar rocky piles of the archipelago, its gray outlines broken by watchtowers. The state of our society can be well described in terms of an electromagnetic field. All the lines of force in it point away from freedom and toward tyranny. These lines are very stable. They have edged their way in and set hard in the grooves. It is almost impossible to perturb them, deflect them, twist them about. Any charge, any mass produced into the field excuse me, is blown effortlessly in the direction of tyranny and can never break through toward freedom. For that 10,000 oxen must be yoked. Now that my book has been openly declared harmful, its publication recognized as a mistake, one of the consequences of voluntarism in literature. Now that it is being removed from even libraries used by the free population, the mere mention of Ivan Denisovich's name or my own has become an irreparably seditious act on the archipelago. But even in those days, even then, when Khrushchev shook my hand and to the accompaniment of applause presented me with to the 300 who considered themselves the artistic elite when I was getting a big press in Moscow, and reporters waited in suspense outside my hotel room. When it was explicitly announced that such books had the support of the party and the government, when the military collegium of the Supreme Court was proud of having rehabilitated me, just as it no doubt regrets it, and the lawyer colonels declared from its bench that the book should be read in the camps. Even then, the mute, the secret, the unnamed forces were invisibly resisting, and the book was stopped. Even then it was stopped. Only rarely did it reach a camp legally, so that readers could take it out of the culture and education section library. It was removed from the camp libraries. It was sent from outside by book post. It was confiscated. Free employees sneaked it under their coats and charged Zeks 5 rubles at a time. 5 rubles a time, or even, so we are told, as much as 20 Khrushchev rubles from Zek, but no one knows the unscrupulous world about the camps will be surprised. The Zeks carried it like a knife past a search point, hid it in the daytime and read it at night. In a camp somewhere in the northern Urals, they made a metal binding for it so that it would last longer. But why talk about sex when the same tacit but generally accepted prohibition was extended to the world about the camps too? At V Station, on the Northern Railway, Maria Asayeva, a free woman, wrote to the Literary Gazette expressing her approval of the story, and whether she posted the letter, imprudently left it on the table. 5 hours later, she had put her opinion on paper. The secretary of the local party organization, V.G. Shishkin, was accusing her of political provocation, the words I think up, and she was arrested on the spot. In corrective labor colony number 2 at Tiraspol, the sculptor G. Nedov, a prisoner himself, modeled the figure of a prisoner, plate number 10, in his trusty workshop. In plasticine, to begin with, the disciplinary officer, Captain Solodykin, discovered it. So you're making a prisoner, are you? Who gave you the right? This is counter-revolution. He seized the figure by the legs and tore it apart, and even hurled halves on the floor. By reading too many of those Ivan Denisoviches. But he didn't go on to stamp on it. And Nedov hid the halves. On Solodyakin's complaint, Nedov was called in to see camp chief Bakayev, but in the meantime he had managed to come upon a few newspapers in the culture and education section. We'll put you on trial, thundered Bakayev. You're trying to turn people against the Soviet regime, so they understand what the sight of a Zek can do. Permit me to tell you, Citizen Chief Nikita Sergeyevich says here. And here's what Comrade Ilyich says. He talks to us like equals, gasped Bakayev. Only 6 months later, did Nedovs dare retrieve the halves. He glued them together, made a Babbitt metal cast, and sent the figure out of the camp with the help of a free man. Wouldn't it be great to hear some of the stories of the free people who helped, like, deliver stuff or whatever, and, the kind of stress. I'm sure it's very stressful, a weighty thing to do. Repeated searches for the story began in corrective labor colony number 2. A thorough inspection was made of the living area. They did not find it. One day Nedov decided to get his own back. He settled down for work, after work, with Tevekelian. Granite does not melt. Behaving as though he was hiding something from the rest of the room. With stoolies in earshot, he asked the lads to screen him, but making sure that he could not be seen, that he could be seen through the window, the stoolies did their work quietly. 3 warders ran, while a 4th stayed outside and watched through the window. In case Nidov passed the book to someone, they seized it. They carried it off to the warder's room and put it away in the safe. Warder Chizhik, with his huge bunch of keys, arms akimbo. We found the book. You'll be put in a hole now, but next morning an officer took it off the hook. Oh, you idiots, give it back to him. This was how the Zeks read a book approved by the party of the people and the people. In a declaration by the Soviet government dated December 1964, we read, "The perpetrators of monstrous crimes must never and in no circumstances escape just retribution. The crimes of the fascist murderers who aimed at the destruction of whole peoples have no precedent in history." This was to prevent the Federal German Republic of introducing a statute of limitations for war criminals after 20 years had elapsed. But they showed no desire to face judgment themselves, though they too aimed at the destruction of whole peoples. A lot of articles appear in our press on the importance of punishing fugitive West German criminals. There are even people who specialize in such articles. Lev Ginsberg, for example, who writes as follows. Some say he intends us to see an analogy. What moral training did the Nazis have to undergo for mass murder to seem natural and right to them? Now, the lawgivers try to defend themselves by saying that they were not the ones to carry out the sentences, and those who did carry them out by saying that it was not they who enacted the laws. It's all so familiar. We have just read what our practical workers have to say. The custody of prisoners is a matter of carrying out the sentence of the court. The guard did not know who was inside for what. So you should have made it your business to know, if you are human beings. That is what makes you villains, that you looked upon the people in your custody neither as fellow citizens nor as fellow men. Did not the Nazis have their instructions too? Did not the Nazis believe that they were saving the Aryan race? Nor will our interrogators stumble over their answer. They have it pat already. Why, they ask, did prisoners make statements against themselves? In other words, they should have stood fast when we tortured them. And why did informers pass on false reports? We relied on these as though they were sworn evidence. For a short time, they became uneasy. V.N. Ilian, the former Lieutenant General of the MGB, of whom we spoke earlier, said of Stalbinovsky, General Gorbatov's interrogator, and mentioned by him, "Oh dear, dear, what an awful business it is. All these troubles he's having, and the poor fellow draws such a good pension." This is also why A.F. Zakharova took up her pen. She was worried that they might all come under attack soon. Of course, Captain Likoshtov, whom Diakov had denigrated. She wrote emotionally, "He is still a captain, a secretary of the party organization, and devotes his labor to agriculture. You can imagine how difficult it is for him to work now, with people writing such things about him. There is talk of looking into the kosher stov, and perhaps even taking him to court. What for? If it stops at talk, well and good. But it is not impossible that they will get around to it. That really will cause an uproar among the MWP personnel. Look at him, for carrying out fully the instructions he was given from above. Is he now supposed to answer for those who gave him the instructions? How very clever. When there's an accident, blame the switchman. But the commotion was soon over. No one would have to answer. No one would be looked into. Staffs, perhaps, were somewhat reduced in places, but have a little patience and they will expand again. Meanwhile, the security boys, those who have not yet reached the pensionable age, and those who need to top up their pensions, have become writers, journalists, editors, anti-religious lecturers, ideological workers, or, some of them, industrial managers. Excuse me. They will just change their gloves and go on leading us as before. It is safer that way. And if someone is content to live on his pension, let him enjoy his ease. Take Lieutenant Colonel Kurdenko, retired, for example. Lieutenant Colonel, that's quite a rank. A former battalion commander, no doubt. No, he began in 1938 as a simple screw. He used to hold the force-feeding pipe. While in the records office, they carry out a leisurely inspection and destroy all unwanted documents, lists of people shot, orders committing prisoners to solitary confinement, excuse me, or the disciplinary barracks, files on investigations in the camps, denunciations from stoolies, superfluous information about practical workers and convoy guards, in medical sections, accounts offices, everywhere in fact, there are superfluous papers, unnecessary clues to be found. We take our seats at your feast like silent ghosts, and you who hated us, living, shall be our hosts. Living, we could not move you, but speechless and dead. We are the vengeful present you cannot but dread. Victoria G., a woman graduate of the Kolyma camp. A word in passing. Why indeed is it always the switchmen? What about the traffic managers? What about those a little higher up than the screws, the practical workers, the interrogators, those who only pointed a finger, those who only spoke a few words from a platform? How does it go again? The perpetrators of monstrous crimes, in no circumstances, righteous retribution, have no precedent in history, aimed at the destruction of whole peoples. Shh, shh. Now we see why in August 1965, from the platform of the ideological conference, a closed conference on the direction our minds should take, all capitalized, the following proclamation was made. It is time to rehabilitate the sound and useful concept of enemy of the people. Oh, well, that's deflating. Thank you for listening. Chapter 2 tomorrow. Rulers change, the archipelago remains. Have a good day.